It's November. You know what that means. Blah, blah, blah. Reverend Project's going to talk about gratitude all month. Hooray. Uh, well, it could be good. It could be pretty good. As you may know about me, I like to, if possible, follow cultural momentum. And this is something that I learned. There have been some really great meditation teachers who, when they came to the West from wherever in the East they were coming, they said, maybe we shouldn't try to convert these Americans to Buddhism or Hinduism or something like that. Maybe we should build on whatever foundations are already in there, such as, like for me, the early part of my life was all steeped in Christian theology. For some others of you, it may have been atheism, secular humanism, new thought, whatever it is. Rather than trying to delete all those files and import a new operating system, some have felt, well, why don't we just clean up the system, remove any bugs out of there, see if there are upgrades, and then work with the architecture that's already in there. I find that similar to how we can work with cultural momentum. So if the whole culture is about, oh, gratitude, wow, well then let's take that time and dive into a real exploration of gratitude. Okay, so cultural momentum, let's swim with the current. But gratitude can also be problematic. Gratitude can also be problematic. I don't know if you've thought about it this way, but I'll give you a couple thoughts because, maybe this is, well, like Thanksgiving, for example, like that's why this is Gratitude Month culturally. That is a problematic holiday. I don't know if you noticed. I mean, I probably wouldn't be allowed to say that in Texas or something, Alabama, where they're making it illegal to teach certain aspects of history. But Thanksgiving is a problematic holiday. And gratitude, the way we Americans of privilege may have used it, may sometimes be inclined to use it by default, can be problematic as well. It can be an expression of privilege, a form of spiritual bypassing, or even judging or gaslighting. Like if you hear someone say, oh, there's no reason to be depressed. You have so much to be grateful for. Have you heard that? Ew, so gross. So that's what they call gaslighting, right? This is, in case you didn't know, all this new language you've got to learn but it helps. It really helps when you know what gatekeeping and tone policing and gaslighting are. You can go, oh, that's why that's made me so mad for the last 40 to 80 years. So you can use gratitude like anything. It's all in how you use it. You could use gratitude, quote unquote, to gaslight someone. You could use gratitude to judge someone. I'm going to show you a little meme I made because now I've got graphic design apps on my computer and I put it out to my Facebook and I specifically with the caption, does this trigger you as much as it triggers me? And it said, if you're not grateful, you're not paying attention. Which is such a new agey, just like passive aggressive thing to say, right? It like implies like, oh, if you don't feel a certain way, then you're doing something wrong. I might just generate a whole ministry where the only sin is telling people what they can or cannot feel, what they do or do not feel. So we got to be a little bit mindful with how we use gratitude. Okay, in spite of all that, gratitude is well documented, particularly in the field of positive psychology, as a master key to mental and emotional wellness. A master key to mental and emotional wellness. Like if you wanted one practice that, like, oh, all of positive psychology, you could boil it down to gratitude practice. Okay, so let's study how best to use this capacity of the mind and heart. Okay, the first thing to know, I'm redefining gratitude. That's right, I'm going out on a limb, doing what only people with the privilege of the internet can do. And heck, Merriam-Webster, that's who this definition came from. No, sorry, we're changing things. I know you've been around for a while, but the new kids on the block are changing the definition. So here's Webster's definition: a feeling of appreciation or thanks. I mean, that's pretty cute, right? Like, there's nothing really wrong with a feeling of appreciation or thanks. But I believe, for the purpose of this sermon at least, I'm redefining it as, and I didn't make a slide for this, and I'm now thinking I should have, a form of perceptual selectivity and trained cognitive bias that optimizes human neurology. Huh? Oh, okay, I'll say it again. No, I hear your cries. I'll say it again. Don't worry, the rest of the sermon is to explain this like in people terms. A form of perceptual selectivity and trained cognitive bias that optimizes human neurology. What does that mean? It means we're going to train where we put our attention and actually make a habit out of that so that we're using our attention in ways that empower and uplift us rather in ways that disempower and take us down. That's how I'm going to define gratitude today. Oh, there he is. Oh, if you're not grateful, you're not paying attention. Oh, come on, come on. Some of us are hypervigilant, okay? We're paying a lot of attention and it doesn't feel good. So don't tell me how to feel, bro. But isn't that model like conventionally handsome? I thought so, okay. Okay, we got to talk about negativity bias. Is that right? No, that's early. The slide is early. Who made this? I'm firing it. Okay. A couple more memes, if you will. My greatest fear, just personal share, my greatest fear is that the spirituality of the coming age is going to be entirely made of one-liners and memes. So be grateful for that big old long sentence where I was like, I'm redefining gratitude, because otherwise you might end up with that. But in the spirit of swimming with the current, we should explore some mimetic religions. Okay, so before memes used to be bumper stickers, right? So I think this one might be a button. You've seen this one, right? Like in kind of social action circles, where, you know, this is a great way to rile up the revolutionary spirit. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And it's true. If you pay attention to certain things, if your awareness expands around certain things, you will be mad, right? Have you experienced this? You know, oh, I wasn't aware of that. And then, oh my, whoa, that's called gaslighting. You know, it might be today that you got mad. Okay, here's a classic for the New Agers in the room, or we all live in a northern part of California, so you may have seen something like this. If you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. And also, that's pretty true, right? Like if we really, like the type of attention you can only really pay when you're in the forest, right? All the other distractions are out of there. Oh man, and it's awe-inspiring. It doesn't have to do anything else but be the forest. And all of a sudden, it's awe-inspiring. Okay, we got two more. This is all about perceptual selectivity and the use of attention. Okay, I liked this one. Don't forget to set your clock on fire this Sunday. Time isn't real. Okay, now I just thought it was just wild enough to be cute. And you will also hear New Age people say stuff like that. But I actually wanted to talk about, okay, and then here's one from 2 weeks ago. If time's an illusion, why did my watch cost so much? This is the answer to that last one. Because if you'd have shown up here an hour ago, it had just been you and me searching for a better quote for the opening words than the one I had originally planned. But time is an illusion. You'll know if you've ever had a customer service job. Has anybody ever had a customer service job? And like, so not the day when all the mean people come in, but like you'll know the difference between a day when there's not a lot of customers, and you look up at the clock an hour later, except only 5 minutes has gone by, right? And then there are those other days where it's just like, oh, good afternoon, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Los Gatos, how can I help you? And you know, oh, and there's the next one, I'll be right with you, sir. I'm on the phone, you know. And then you look up at the clock and 5 minutes has gone by, but it's an hour later. And you're like, oh, I can't help you. I've got to check out and go get myself a Subway sub sandwich down the street. Right. In that sense, time is a little bit illusory, right? It like the subjective quality of how long an hour is can actually expand or contract. And it's a matter of where we're placing our attention. It's a matter how fast the time goes in your customer service job is a matter of where you place your attention. This is going to play into gratitude practice. Okay, so now I get to tell you about the slide that's out of order, but only if the buttons will work. There we go. So we're going to talk a bit about negativity bias. One reason to cultivate gratitude, if you're one of those people who takes notes in a sermon, this is your next point. One reason to cultivate gratitude, why it's such one of those markers of psychological well-being, this master key, is that it's a direct counter to a cognitive bias in our brain called negativity bias. Negativity bias, some of us have a little more than this than others. I'm not going to point fingers, only thumbs. Who's got 2 thumbs and a whole lot of negativity bias? This guy. So, but we all have a bit of this. And what's a cognitive bias? It's a shortcut in your brain that over the millions of years of primate in particular, but actually animal life in general, evolution, we built shortcuts that Mother Nature thought was going to help us survive. And it did. That's why those were selected for. So negativity bias says it's more important to watch out for sticks than it is to seek out carrots. You have to have both in life, right? You got to have the carrot and the stick. But it's more important to watch out for sticks. Why is this? Well, imagine you're a cave human. I will call myself Ugg and you can be Grug, and we are cave humans. And if you forget where the strawberry patch is, well, let's say blackberries, old strawberries are not very big of filling, but if you forget where the blackberry patch is, you can go and find it again tomorrow. If you forget where the direwolf lair is, you cannot go and miss it again tomorrow because you're dead, Grug. So the brain selects for what's been painful, hard, challenging, awful, and it actually actively seeks that out unless we train it otherwise. So we tend to remember negative stuff more easily. We tend to highlight that with our perception because our brain is trying to help us survive. This was really good back when we could expect you to live to about 30. And Mother Nature said, like, okay, we'll get them to 30. We'll pass on the genetic information, and then the next generation, maybe they'll live to 31. That'll be fun. But for those of us, the time from 30 to 100 and some odd that we're going for, that part is where this negativity bias kind of stuff, like, have you noticed that after about 30, all those old traumas start to weigh down a little heavier? I don't know. There's some, like, you get up and then you only have so much momentum you can ride on. This is where we actually have to learn how to train new biases into our neurology if we want to thrive, if we want to be happy in these ridiculously long lifespans that we Homo sapiens now have. So to boil it down, this is from Rick Hansen, whose book, The Buddha's Brain, I think should be required reading for all modern Homo sapiens. Hansen says, the brain is good at learning from bad experiences, but bad at learning from good ones. The brain is good at learning from bad experiences, but bad at learning from good ones. He also says, your brain is like Velcro for challenging experiences and Teflon for enjoyable experiences. Those are the defaults. Those are the manufacturer defaults. I just got my new iPhone 13 so I can produce better videos for the internet and become an influencer. Oh yeah. These things come with a bunch of defaults, right? This mic, I had to reset the defaults so that they could hear through the Yeti mic so that the recording that I try to put up on YouTube later sounds good instead of all crinkly and scratchy. Your brain is kind of like that. Your brain is like, what if we take in all the crinkly and scratchly stuff? And I know you've got a whole other input that could be giving you this clear, beautiful experience. But this is how I'm set. This is how the fact, I just found in my computer, there's a little volume thing for my mic to go in. So I've been recording these, I have a whole online education, other job, right? I've been recording these videos. They're all coming out quiet. I didn't know there was a button that could tell me how much the mic listened to. That would have been nice to know. And it would have been nice to know that you can train a gratitude bias, not just negativity bias. You see how I tied that all together? That was my favorite. So just like a computer, your neurocomputer, your biocomputer has default settings, and then there are also ways you don't have to be a slave to the software, because your hardware is actually built for gratitude just as much as it's built for difficult experiences. So we're going to train our brains to be Velcro for enjoyment and Teflon for trauma. This is the idea. Velcro for enjoyment, Teflon for trauma. Okay. So I rewrote this according to what I kind of think it ought to say. If it wasn't No Nuance November, this is a trend I found out about on TikTok. I think I might even be ahead of a trend. No Nuance November. I hope it doesn't take off. It's got the other 11 months of the year. It doesn't need November too. So how about you can increase your gratitude and thus your emotional well-being by choosing where you place your attention. You can increase your gratitude and thus your emotional well-being by choosing where you place your attention. Okay, we can learn to alter how we grant significance to different aspects of our experience, and gratitude practice is one way to do that. So specifically in the brain, when you do something like keeping a gratitude journal, this is one of the ones that, like, anybody who knows anything about positive psychology, you're like, what seems to be the problem? Oh, I feel a little sad lately. Well, you know what? You could do the 3 good things practice before you go to bed. Just remember 3 good things that happened that day. And the reason why they'll tell you that, and you might still think they're gaslighting you, but they're telling you an evidence-based practice that when you train the mind to just recall what were 3 good things that happened today, it gives your brain a bias more toward what there is to be grateful for than toward what there is to be less than grateful for. So the idea that many just wise people down through the ages, and now people who are doing research on this have found, is that it's not so much what's happening from out there. Of course, what's happening out there is extremely important, but our experience is not made so much of what's happening out there as what we are bringing to it from our side. All right, it's getting kind of cold in here, huh? What if I just speed run the rest of the service and we can go out in the sun? Would you feel grateful for that? Okay, let's see what I can do for you. All right, so, oh, that was a great segue. What we just did was, that was a perceptual selectivity exercise. Those of you who didn't notice that it was chilly, now you do. All right, similarly, find something blue in the room. Can you find something blue? How easy was that? Super easy, right? Let's see, find something brown. Oh, wow, our mind actually is so amenable. When you ask it a question, it tries to go and answer that question. So when there weren't a lot of joys and concerns, and I was like, okay, practice for Thanksgiving, what are you grateful for? That's part of this talk. When we turn our minds to looking for what we're grateful for, we are more likely to find it. Negativity bias makes for better headlines. If it bleeds, it leads. We know that, but we don't often know that we're looking through a filter. That like, we think if it bleeds, it leads, because that's somehow more real about reality. And that's why, like, well, who are they? Fox and CNN and even NPR. It's like bad news radio most of the day. Like, why are these all up in my awareness? And the Good News Network, I have to go and like re-like them on Instagram so that I get any good news, right? There's a lot to be grateful for, right? If we turn the wheel from cultural momentum and evolutionary momentum, which wants us to think about how bad everything is, which wants us to think about how many obstacles there are to overcome, and rarely gives us breathing room to think about how many obstacles we have overcome. The fact we're here fretting about the future means that we survived. This society-wide negativity bias is very problematic in terms of facilitating social change, because to be change makers, we need to be empowered. Negativity bias would have us believe that if we worry and fret over all the obstacles there are to be overcome, we're going to be better change makers. And this is actually not the optimal way to use our brain. We have to find a way not to check out from life, not to be a toxic optimist, but to keep ourselves in the optimal state while viewing those obstacles that need to be overcome. We need active hope, which is a term from Joanna Macy, who's a UU minister, and I highly recommend you read their book, Active Hope. A sense of drive that moves us forward. If we don't have the skill of gratitude, this empowerment or hope will be hard to find. So we could call it gratitude, or we could call it something like positivity bias, savoring the good, foregrounding hope, or our innate capacity to grant significance. The main thing we get to choose in life is what we're going to decide things mean. Gratitude is a tricky business. We could use it with unconsciousness of our own privilege. We could mouth the words while continuing to sow upset in ourselves and those around us. But we could also see gratitude as a lesser known skill of mind, one that we could use to empower ourselves as change makers for the things that we cannot be grateful about. So begin now. Find something good. Breathe it in and savor it. Let it rewire your nervous system. Let it empower you for those good fights you will then go on to fight. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm grateful for your patience with a slight distraction on my part this morning, and just some various new skills that we're all developing in this strange era that we live in, where the coming spirituality will not be one of one-liners and memes, but of chosen gratitude.